Welcome to Living in the Matrix. I'm Jonathan, and I'm left of center.
And I'm Rich, and I tend to lean a little bit more to the right. But the bottom line is together we try to look for the balance of what it means to be human in today's world.
Welcome to Living in the Matrix, everyone. I'm Jonathan. This is my co-host, Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hey everybody, great to be back. Friday afternoon. It's March. It's Women's Month, right? Let's go, right? Happy to have Audrey Johns as a guest on today's podcast. Really looking forward to it.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm actually wearing my long Matrix sweater today. I'm themed out to be on the
Neo,
podcast.
that's awesome.
It's more Trinity, but whatever you want.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to start there and say, have you ever seen The Matrix?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you are an official member. What character are you in the movie? Who are you in the movie? Who do you resonate with the most?
We all want to be Trinity because she's gorgeous and she's a strong woman. But no, I think I'm Neo. I'm stumbling through. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm going to keep pushing forward. And somehow throughout this, I don't know. I feel like, and I know as women, we're not supposed to talk ourselves up, but I feel like I'm at least attempting to be a badass. So I guess that would be it.
We welcome that.
Yeah. Awesome. So why don't we start with, you have a ridiculously amazing weight loss journey that you've kind of turned into this helping other people. Why don't you give us sort of a summary to intro our audience so that they can understand your work and why you chose this journey?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I lost my job in the big housing crisis, 15 years ago. I was a brand new mommy. I was horribly overweight. I was close to 300 pounds and I'm like 5'3", so poof. Really unhealthy, unable to play with my kid, unable to move comfortably, horrible self-esteem. And I wanted to teach myself how to cook. The last gift, my mother had passed away. The last gift she gave me was a cookbook. And I thought, well, I'm just going to cook from it. I'm just going to teach myself how to cook through this cookbook. And it was Nigella Lawson's How to Be a Domestic Goddess. And I ended up learning that I love to cook. And I continued, my journey. At this point, the internet was still kind of a baby, kind of like how podcasting is right now. So good on you guys for having a podcast. And I found some clean eating websites and books, and clean eating wasn't really a thing at the time. I don't even think it had that name. And I had read that Diet Cokes were really bad for you. And Diet Cokes were my thing. And so I thought, well, I'll try it for 1 week. What's the worst that could happen? I didn't change anything else about my diet, but I lost 10 pounds in 1 week just by giving up diet sodas. Right. Just like, boom.
Yeah. That's obvious.
And I thought, isn't that amazing? And I love to tell that story because so many people are hooked on it. I'm like, honestly, I'd rather one of my readers drink a real Coca-Cola. It's just hold yourself accountable for the calories.
Audrey, what you did is you called your own bluff and gave yourself an opportunity to learn something new. That's what most people don't understand is weight shift journeys begin with giving yourself credibility and opportunity. You gave yourself the idea that, what if I just didn't do this for a week? And that fasting, that you separated yourself from that Diet Coke, which was probably something you had regular. And most people don't do that. They don't separate themselves enough to get themselves new opportunities. So I love that you did that.
Yeah. And it kind of opened up my mind. And I thought, well, there's more to this. And so then I slowly started removing the, lean cuisines and given lean cuisines, they're trying to be better now, but it was just all crap. And I started removing all of these really unhealthy things from my diet. And I started losing weight so fast. It was just falling off of me. It was so easy.
Let me ask you a question about that from your perspective, because I know the quality of food is important to what you're going to talk about. Is the diet industry world filled with crap?
Yes, 100%.
Really? Of course.
100%.
It makes money.
And And I'm so glad I'm getting this opportunity to talk about it, because I don't want to be part of the weight loss industry. I want to be like,
Right.
I don't know, the black sheep of it, or, the disruptor, because it's horribly unhealthy. It's money driven. It's horrible for self-esteem, for mental health. It's just, and I love one of my greatest analogies, and I know I'm skipping ahead, but one of my greatest analogies, and I know I'm talking to two men, but I'm sure there's plenty of women here. The last 5 pounds is probably just boob weight. I mean, honestly, just
Oh,
stop
really?
killing yourself.
I
Like, the
love it.
last 5 pounds, so many people will lose 100 pounds, and then they're so fixated that I can't lose these last 5 pounds. And I'm like, can you just take a step back and realize what you've done? And instead of celebrating your success and being proud of yourself, you're fixating on 5 more pounds.
Mm.
Just stop. Your body's done. You're doing great.
I
Let's start
love it.
building some muscle now.
One of our
All right.
favorite books is called Letting Go, and it's a whole different kind
Oh
of
my God.
story. But we definitely recognize that getting detached from those things, you're living in the moment. You're doing the things that you should be doing instead of focusing too much on the outcomes, right? And so I love that concept, and that's the reason why I was so excited to have you on. When I was, Jonathan and I get lots of suggestions. We have lots of guests who suggest other folks, and when I saw this idea of lose weight by eating, I'm thinking, okay, this is already outside of the status quo. How
Mhm.
do you lose weight by eating? It seems like the
Yes.
antithesis. How and like I said before, we've had people who they could be psychonauts doing like psychedelics and going outside that box. It could be just somebody who's trying to get rid of big pharma, and eat good food and take care of yourself with diet and looking at your blood type and taking supplements to help that instead of relying on big pharma, right? So I love how we've kind of segued into this idea of you're that black sheep, but we love this because this is where real kinds of learnings come into. And we're talking about, and there's a lot of also biohacks and nutritional hacks that are actually not healthy that are just out there on Twitter, right? They're like, hey, take this or do that. And sometimes they could be counterproductive, right? So help us understand maybe more about, well, maybe continue on your journey, but I'd love to figure out what are the main components of your diet that really made a difference, because I've been trying to lose weight myself and I've had a hard time getting beyond a certain plateau myself. So I'd love to hear, your steps or a little bit more of your journey.
Well, what I found when I removed the diet sodas and stopped eating the processed foods, I found that I was actually eating more food, because those little lean cuisines are just like nothing. I had been maybe eating 1,000 calories a day, starving myself and gaining weight. I found I was actually eating more food. It was still a low amount of calories, but when you're having mostly fruits and vegetables, there are really not that many calories. I found that I was just eating more. And that's kind of where lose weight by eating comes into. I found foods that naturally boost your metabolism, that naturally turn off your hunger receptors, which is why we're still hungry after we eat things, is because we're not
It's a
giving our body
dopamine
what it
hit.
needs.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Well, essentially, eating is essentially a dopamine hit. I think about this all the time because eating is not just getting full. Although my body is attracted to being full, like overstuffed, and but it's a dopamine hit at its basic core level. It's your body. You want some flavor or compensation for something, and that's the part. Is it's one of the easiest coping mechanisms there is to just eat because it tastes good. That's the fact. Sugar tastes
I
good.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And interestingly enough, the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you crave. The more sugar you
Mm-hmm.
eat, the more carbs you crave. And then, they're all interchangeable. But I love food and I didn't want to give up flavor. And so I started creating these recipes and they took off. And if you go to the Lose Weight by Eating website, it's just really easy. Just type in Lose Weight by Eating. You will find things on there like a low calorie, protein packed shamrock shake right now, because that's what
Mm.
people want. They want the junk food, but can we make it just as tasty and healthier? And not just low calorie, but healthier. And I have this analogy. For years, I've been trying to make a really low calorie, healthy onion ring. And I can't do it. I
Mm.
can do it, but it's not as good as the original. So here's my recommendation. Have the frickin' onion rings and then move on. Like, once in a while, you have to give your body what you really want and just forgive yourself for it.
Yeah.
And even if you're on a diet, like, don't punish yourself because you had an onion ring. Don't skip your next meal. Don't say I'm going to start again on Friday or again on Monday, which I really want to come back to because I think I've figured out the secret to weight loss, and that's part of it. But it's that, just have the foods that you want, but try to have them healthier. And if I can't make them healthier, then once in a while splurge, and that's okay.
100% believe in those. Yeah, especially like even when you're doing keto, people that are doing really like intermittent fasting or keto, to have a cheat day or a cheat weekend, dive in because you're doing hard things throughout the week and then make that happen. And this is all part of life. I mean, it could be when you meditate, right? People get frustrated when they're trying to meditate and they get distracted. And it's like, no, any meditation is better than not meditating at all, right? And so
Yes.
let it go, right? And then just kind of go on to the next one. So awesome. Well, we would love to follow your progress on any other kind of food that we really crave, like tater tots. Maybe you can make a better version of tater tots instead of an onion ring. So looking forward to
I
that.
think I can. I've done French fries. I've done hash browns. I welcome the challenge. Let's try
Nice.
it. I have the weight loss secret for you. You're gonna screw up, but it's what you do after. Like, you are human. And I have talked to big, huge stars in the weight loss world, like Bob Harper from Biggest Loser, about this. It is part of the journey. You will screw up. You'll have the onion rings. You'll go to crumble cookie like I totally did yesterday. You will screw up. It's what you do after. It's not punishing yourself. It's never, ever, ever saying, I'm going to start again on Monday, because that is when you fail. And so the secret to weight loss is, you're going to screw up. It's part of the journey. Keep going. And I've kind of found that that's part of life too. Like, you're going to screw up, and it's not when you mess up. That's not what defines you. It's how you grow from it. And that's kind of how I feel like, I've taken which pill is it? The blue
Red pill.
pill? The red
Mhm.
pill. I feel like I've taken the red pill, and I now know this truth of life, that I feel like I've learned something. We are gonna screw up. We are human. It's what we do after. So that's the biggest message I can bring to everyone today.
Okay. So let me take it back to the beginning because I want to set this up for our listeners. You are obviously not overweight by any means if you're watching on YouTube. You are a beautiful woman, but your journey sort of starts from when you were 170 pounds. And what would
270.
270?
270.
Sorry,
Yeah.
270.
Yeah.
Yes. So my dad was obese, and it's interesting. I've looked back and said, what was the mindset? What was going through your life at that time that got you in a space where you were 270?
I had very low self-esteem. I was in an abusive relationship. Food was my comfort. And I kind of feel like, when a lot of women in my generation and in generations before me have been put on diets by their parents. And whether they told us we were on a diet or didn't, like my mother didn't, I found the books in her room. It's kind of you're kind of rebelling against your parents, even still in adulthood. Like, you hurt me so bad with that. And I know that wasn't your intention. I know your intentions were good, but telling me I'm not good enough when I'm a size 6 in high school, and given, yes, I was heavier than everyone else in high school at a size 6, I'm a size 6 today. And half of the women hearing this would be like, damn, you go, girl. So, not accepting me for who I was as a young girl, I think really messed me up. And I've been doing a lot of therapy to get past all of that. So I think it was a combination of still rebelling, abusive relationship, not knowing how to eat. Like, nobody ever taught me how to eat. Nobody ever taught me this is a healthier option, or hey, it's fine to have the treat once in a while, but let's eat healthier.
What was your
And
diet like growing up?
oh man, my mom, God love her, could not cook.
Just basic
Um,
carb
Mm.
stuff? Yeah.
it was we were Italian family, so there were a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
carbs,
So
but
was I. Yeah.
yeah, but it was it was a lot of fast food. Really, it came down to convenience food. And so it was fast food, it was frozen meals, it was shake and bake, and I helped. It was stovetop stuffing, it was convenience foods because she didn't know how to cook because nobody ever taught her how to cook, which
Hmm.
is just baffling to me coming from an Italian family.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my basic diet. And it was unsurprising that that's what I brought to myself in my adulthood. And I feel like that's a real missing piece. Our kids are almost never taught how to eat and how to cook in school. And if they are, that's such a small amount of time and they're with their friends and they're distracted and having fun, which is great. But it's our job as parents or as guardians or as aunts and uncles or even as big sisters and big brothers to just, if nothing else, be a good example, but even more so, have your kids sit at your kitchen island while you cook dinner. Just they kind of passively learn about
Yeah.
I
food
tell
that
my
way.
kids how to cook. They love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And this
Well, here's
country
the
hasn't
thing.
done anybody any favors, right? You look at
Yeah.
like the Crisco and the seed oils and all of the kinds of automated processed things that we've inculcated, right? You go back into the 20s and 30s and 40s, people were eating, probably pasture raised, grains or feed,
A lot more
cattle.
proteins and just quality
Absolutely.
foods. Yeah.
My dad drank raw milk when he was younger, and so the idea of organic wasn't even probably thought about because everything was organic by default. And then you've got, how does America support Cargill and Monsanto and do mass produce things and cut corners, right? What I heard about on Robert F. Kennedy, he talked about glyphosate, and I don't know if you know what glyphosate is, but it's part of Roundup, and so it's something that really is a toxin to our system. So imagine a big cornfield, and in the past, people used to use hand sprays. Manual labor would go in and take out all the weeds with Roundup, and they'd spray it locally on the actual weed. Now what they do is they make genetically modified corn that is not affected by Roundup, and they just spray the whole freaking farm. And that means it goes into everything you eat, your cereal, everything. And so that's just one component of glyphosate, let alone eat cornflakes for the rest of your life is what people are suggesting, right? And these are terrible things. And I think we're starting to see the tide turn a little bit, but we need more voices like yours, Audrey, to kind of
Audrey, yeah,
be the
let
anthem.
me dovetail on this, Rich, because I think what I want to call out is you reached a point in your life where you took the red pill. What made you take the red pill? Because I think a big part of this show is helping people break out of the matrix. And I think ultimately that matrix is largely stories we tell ourselves in here that control us. How did you break out?
I think I wanted to take my life back. I had a brand new baby. My my abuser kind of flipped the switch when I was pregnant. Abusers typically wait until they have you locked into something, into a home or a child. And I'm not saying, he was hitting me while I was pregnant. That's not what I mean, but I think I started to see it and I needed to get out of it, and I was trying to find my own voice because I was at that point being suppressed. And I I may have a different answer for you in another year after more therapy. So I reserve the right to change my answer, but I think that's what it was.
That's awesome.
So
Thanks.
essentially, are you saying you felt like you got pushed out? Kind of help me
No, I
understand.
feel like I pulled myself out.
Okay, good.
I
Good.
I feel like I, was like wanted to be a phoenix rising from the ashes, but instead I just grabbed myself by the hair and pulled myself out.
Yeah.
Slowly, painfully, but I did it.
Do you remember sort of the catalyst for like that moment when you kind of shifted, or was it a gradual process?
I think it was a gradual process, but one thing that really hits me is I started losing the weight slowly, and some mommies at the dance studio we brought our little babies to, basically, were noticing the weight loss because they'd see me once a week, and they asked me, what are you doing? And I had a hard time articulating it because nobody knew what clean eating was at the time, and I said, well, I'll just start a website and I'll just throw up what I'm eating on there and we'll just go from there. Well, in that moment, I had a hand surgery, and so I was typing one handed, and my my ex was very anti me on this website. He wanted me to be off the website. He didn't want me to be doing this. I couldn't have my own thing. It was my exit strategy. And I think I just kind of was like, no, I finally have something for me and I need to do this. And this is important for me. And I think I kind of pushed through. And I think I think that's what got me out of the relationship
Yeah.
eventually too. Slowly. But yeah, I think it was gradual, but I think it was
Yes,
when
you
I
did.
received some resistance is when I kind of fought back.
Good. Good. I'm
Love
glad
it.
to hear that because I have 4 daughters. So
Mhm.
I have a feminine heart to some respect because I have had women around me my entire life. And I realized that journey of stepping out and owning yourself outside of a man is one of the most important journeys I think a woman can ever make. And you captured your own heart. You said, "Hey, I want to fight for me." And I'm glad you did that
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
more women need to do that. More women need to say, "Fuck you, abuser. You need to get the fuck out." I'm going to say it right now.
Absolutely.
I have friends who have serious abuse in their relationship. My current wife was abused for 20 years. It's time for women to stand up and say no more. Like, let's do a Me Too movement on that starting
Yes.
today. That would be perfect.
Hell yeah. I would love that. And
Yeah. And I think
it's
you're helping women find that. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say is you are. You're helping women find that courage. So thank you.
thank you. And I it's not something I talk about very often. I'm actually surprised that I'm being so vulnerable with all of you, but I genuinely want to help people out there because you can go to the website and you can read my story. But what can I bring to this podcast that's new and different? And I don't want to throw my daughter's dad under the bus too much. I mean, that's not fair to her. But yeah, it's not okay to be held down, to be suppressed. It's not okay to, dress the way he wants you to dress and to talk to only the people that you're allowed to talk to, and you can't be friends with those people. So if you're in a relationship where you're being told how to dress, you're being
Yeah.
told where to work, you're being told what to cook, I mean, unless it's his birthday, then by all means, do the right
Right.
thing there. But and if you're being told you can't be friends with people, or if you were moved out of state to get away from your support system, you need to take a step back and think about what's really happening, and maybe go talk to a therapist about it just so
Yeah.
that you can get a different perspective.
At what point? So you were heavy and you started coming out of that. For our listeners who are struggling with that period of life, it's that period of making the courageous step, not just even out of abuse, but to eat well. How did you do that?
I think it's so important that you talked about food and you talked about abuse, because I did have a bad relationship with food, almost an abusive relationship with food. And the way I came out of it was I learned how to eat healthier. I kept moving towards that. And as I had noted, I had had a hand surgery. I had been in this horrible car accident. I had a nerve condition that I had gotten from my hand surgeries. It's called CRPS. It's very similar to fibromyalgia. And my hip was messed up and my back was messed up. I could not work out. Could not. Everybody says the only way you can lose weight is work out. Working out is so great for your health. And it can help you tone up as you lose weight, but you don't need it to lose weight. You lose weight in the kitchen. And I lost 150 pounds in 11 months without working out, just by eating healthy. That was it. I
Listen up,
stopped
everybody.
having the fake foods. No more fake sugars. So no more Diet Cokes, no more Crystal Light, no more, the little blue and the little pink packets that you put in your coffee. None of that crap. No processed foods. So basically, I tell people, if you can't pronounce something on an ingredient label, it's probably not safe. And I even tell people, stop looking at the nutrition label first, look at the ingredients first. Yes,
Right.
the
Yes.
nutrition label is important, but
Mhm.
it's the ingredients that count.
Tell
And
our listeners why.
well, because your body doesn't know what to do with chemicals. We are
Yes.
organic. We're
Yes.
organic. And if you give your body, say for instance, some of those drinks, some of the really bad protein powders, some of, and I'm not saying
Oh
all protein
yeah.
powders are bad, but they have fillers in them. Some of the yogurts, the really highly processed yogurts have fillers in them. They thicken them up. Do you really think your body can differentiate where no, we're not supposed to thicken you up. We're only supposed to thicken the yogurt up. So either one, your body doesn't know what to do with it, or two, your body goes, okay, I'm going to thicken you up. So if you eat all natural foods, your body knows what to do with it.
Hmm.
And very often you'll find that with these fake sugars, and I've actually gotten almost in trouble a few times for some of my articles on my website. I've actually taken one down because these fake sugars have got the lobbyists behind them. And let's just be honest. If you have a lobbyist behind you, let's just take a step back and think,
Follow the
is this
money.
You are
really
the
good?
mafia. Yeah.
Yep.
You are
Right?
the mafia.
You got it.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, it really came down to just eating healthy. And back to the last 5 pounds. I really wanted to be 120 pounds and I never got there. And at some point, I just said, I'm really happy with the weight loss I've had. And did I have body dysmorphia for a long time? Yes. I would look in the mirror and I still saw a heavy person, but I felt better and I was eating healthier and my skin cleared up and I was able to play with my daughter. And eventually, after maybe a year, the body dysmorphia kind of lifted and the confidence slowly started coming back. And for the most part, I have kept off the 150 pounds for the last 14 years. I did have a hysterectomy a few years ago, and that kind of pushed me into early menopause. And, so I did gain like 5 pounds. And when you're 5'3", 5 pounds looks like 20. So, I've had my ups and downs, but in this moment,
But they're not
I'm
crippling.
No.
no,
Yeah.
no. And in this moment, I'm trying to, you think about, you look back at a picture of yourself when you thought you were heavy and you're like, damn, if only I could be that weight again. I'm trying to
Mm.
put those glasses on and think, what am I going to think 20 years from now when I'm obsessing about 5 pounds instead of just living my life? And so I'm trying to help people and help myself through the process of shedding that body dysmorphia, saying, and I'm sorry, Rich, I know you brought up a plateau, but depending on how much weight you have to lose, maybe it's not a plateau. Maybe you're done. If it's 50 pounds, that's one thing. But if it's 10, maybe it's time to take a step back and think, am I obsessing about this because I want to fit into the same jeans I wore 20 years ago? That's just unreasonable. Or am I doing this because my doctor's telling me to? And if your doctor's telling you to, then go for it. But that's where
Yeah.
I am right now. And I've had an amazing journey through all of it. So it's still going, which
Audrey,
is kind of great.
for our listeners, because this is your experience, and share as much or as little as you want. What does body dysmorphia feel like?
You look in the mirror and you're still heavy. You look in the
No matter
mirror
what.
and
Mm.
and you still feel heavy. Still to this day, I do have issues with it where I will, I'll feel heavy. The jeans still fit the same, but I feel bad. I feel like I look bad, and my partner will be like, "Are you freaking crazy?" Like we walk
You're
through the
like, you
grocery
guys
store,
are
and
hot.
like
Yeah.
he's like, "Men break their necks to stare at you," but I don't see that. But I see when I look in the mirror,
Yeah.
instead of saying my body is strong, I carried a child, I'm 44 years old and I'm still a size 6, instead of celebrating that, I nitpick.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of women do that. I'm sure a lot of men do that. I don't think it's ever going to end, but I think we need to talk about it and talk about why it's a problem, and maybe our generation can't fix it, but maybe we can crack open something to where the next generations can stop picking their bodies apart because we're just meat sacks. Like, why do we care what our meat sack looks like?
Well,
We're
Audrey, let me stop you for a second and say this is a man's problem. Okay. we put it on you. It's not you guys. You guys perpetuate the problem that we give you, which is we want you to look a certain way. And then you spend your entire lives trying to fulfill that. We are the catalyst for that problem. So we need to stand up and say, and the sad part is that because I have 4 girls, we create the very cultures which propagate taking advantage of women at the expense of our children, because it ultimately affects our children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that, because I do have some amazing men in my life who are very evolved, but I don't think I've ever heard that. So thank you. That's
Cool.
I'm standing ovation. Thank you for saying that, because it needs to be said. And but as women, we are also, my mother, it was all about find a good man and get married, find a good man and get married. And it, we are teaching this to our daughters, whether we're using the words or not, that we are supposed to be hot. Like that is where a woman's value is, and I'm sorry, I work in kitchens, but it all comes down to, is she fuckable? And that is not where my value comes from. My value comes from, I'm working hard, I'm a good person, I'm trying to evolve, I'm trying to grow, I'm working on myself, because looks are fleeting. And if it's one thing, and it's not okay for men to value women like that, but it's even so much worse for women to see all of their value in just their looks, because it's fleeting. And I think that's why we are getting so much fillers and Botox. Not that there's anything wrong with that, not that I've had it, but again, I reserve the right to change my mind later. But the beauty filters and all of this stuff, we are expected to look a certain way, and then we perpetuate it to our daughters, if nothing else, with really bad behavior like using beauty filters.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's here's the thing. If men would wake up and take responsibility for that, it would release their daughters. That's the one you have to really work on, is the daughters, to finding the value of beauty is in the elegance of the human being, not in their fuckability.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where we need a shift in culture away from beauty as glorification and beauty as elegance. We've lost elegance in this country a lot. And I think about that. I think about all the time of, I'm raising 4 women in the world. I want to be an example. And I realize, man, we perpetuate a lot of those problems. We create them. We need to take responsibility for that, because we perpetuate that cycle, and women buy into that cycle, because
And
that's
they buy
what,
in. Yep.
yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
So
and I'm so glad we're talking about this, and I really hope that your male listeners take stock, and I really hope on my end the women listeners take stock. And nobody's perfect, and I don't think any of us have the answer, right? If there was just some, if we could just flip a switch and make it all better, we would. But we need to start having this conversation. Like, if it's not us, what are we going to do? We're going to put it on our kids and on their generation. That's not fair to them. So we need to start having this conversation of, how can men be better? How can women be better? How can we support each other in that? And how can we start teaching the next generations to be kinder to themselves? And I love
here's
that
how ironic, here's how ironic it is people are now robbing makeup stores. That's
I
how
know.
ironic. That's how
I know.
valuable it is.
My daughter and I were at the mall yesterday having our girls' night. She wanted to go into Sephora because she told me these stories. And so we went into Sephora only because of this story of how the kids are like messing with the products. It's like, it's a whole thing.
No, they're bank robbing the products because they're ridiculously expensive. That's
yeah, that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're glamour.
Well, so
Go ahead, Rich.
we've been talking about a lot of things that are like super important, but they're going to take almost like re-education, right? It's going to take a lot
Yes,
of digging
it
in.
is.
There's a lot of issues that we're facing in this culture, in this country, whether it's gun violence or whether it's other types of things. The antidepressant kind of thing going on. There's a lot of ways to kind of go against that, and to try to dig in. And we can probably have an entire other episode in a few months talking about kind of the progress we've made. But one of the things I think now it's probably a good time to start talking about some of the practical day-to-day
Yeah.
things that you can do, including like some of the great menu items that you might throw down. What are some of the ways that you can transition from this kind of theoretical way of becoming more independent, of not looking at yourself with that body dysmorphia, and doing those practical things where, when you think about it, the things we do on a day-to-day basis with consistency, those actually put something in our brain that actually help. And when you actually start, I've seen articles that talk about when people like grow their own food and they cut that food and they prepare it with their own hands. There's something that happens in the brain that really makes a dynamic there. So I'd love to hear, on a more practical standpoint, about as you go your day to day, what do you have in the kitchen? What are some of these recipes? What are some of the foods that you're choosing, and how did you choose them to kind of help be that kind of day to day diet that's helping people lose weight?
Yeah, and I love that you want to bring that all together, and I do really want to bring self-care and self-love and eating healthy together. I feel like it's all one. For me, when it comes to creating a healthy meal, I try to really lean on 50% vegetables. If you can do them raw, even better, more nutrients,
And why? Why raw as opposed to cooked?
Or
because
steamed
you
even,
That's
get
an
right?
more
important
nutrients
distinction.
in them.
Yes.
Okay,
You'll
so there's
get more
more in the raw.
nutrients.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. And keep in mind that these vegetables and fruits, this is what turns off your hunger receptors. So if
Yes.
you eat a burger and an hour later you're hungry, or if you eat some Chinese food, which I love, and then an hour later you're hungry, it's because you haven't turned off your hunger receptors. It's not really because you're necessarily hungry. You have a belly full of
Mm,
food, but you haven't fed your body what it needs. And so by giving yourself vegetables, and listen, if you don't like salads and if you just can't eat raw foods, by all means, grill up some veggies, go for it. But try to do 50% vegetables, 25% lean meats or lean protein ideally. So if you're vegan, some tofu,
Sure.
some chickpeas, and then 25% healthy grains. So
hmm
we're looking at quinoas, we're looking at brown rice, we're looking at healthy foods. Now I get that there's going to be some people going, no, 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 that I'm not going to be able to lose weight on that because keto says I can't. Well, keep in mind, and this might, you guys might not like this, but keto is just Atkins repackaged.
Yeah.
And
It
Dr.
is.
Atkins died of a heart attack. So
Yeah.
just because you can lose weight on something does not mean that it
It's a
is
diet,
healthy for you.
a lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah. And it
And we
stresses the
want
body,
lifestyle
right?
changes.
I mean,
What's
you're
that?
literally it stresses the body. You're literally forcing your body into ketosis, where it's relying on ketones as a source of energy and not the glycogen stores that come up from eating carbohydrates in the fat. And quite frankly, if you've got hepatitis, you're typically also on a ketosis. That's my understanding. So that's why you take the strips for it. So, and people also fall back on, I can have cheese and bacon and all the on, as long as there's
Fatty
no
foods.
carbs there, I can go to dirty keto, and that's not a good answer as well, right?
No.
That's a
Well, I think it's
terrible.
And
important
you're
that's what you're saying is you're putting your body in a stress by doing that. It's not a sustainable
Yeah,
way of eating. I have
exactly.
my wife's best friends are full keto, been for as long as it is, and they swear by it. So
And
you
they
never
stay
Well,
know.
but
on it.
let's take
They
a
don't.
step back.
Yeah.
And I really want to concentrate on that word you just used, Jonathan, because you just said stress. And we
Yeah,
all
that's the
know there
source.
is, stressing out your body is not good. Stressing out your body creates disease. So can you lose weight? Can you lose weight eating a cardboard box? Yeah, probably. Should you? No. Does that mean it's healthy? No.
Yeah.
What I want to try to encourage people to do is to find healthier ways that you can sustain this. Now, if you're diabetic, I get it. Maybe you need a little bit more lean protein and maybe a little bit less of the starchy carbs, but have more vegetables then. It's just I'll put out a recipe for a salad and it's nothing but greens, some chopped up vegetables, a really healthy salad dressing that's maybe, just lemon juice and a few herbs and a little bit of Dijon mustard. And people will be like, oh, that's not healthy. There's too many carbs. There's literally not one crouton in there. There's
hmm
no rice. There's not even any quinoa in there. And people are just so hyper focused on carbs. And it kind of reminds me of when people were so hyper focused about fat back in the 90s and
It
everything
all
had to be
comes
fat
around.
free,
Yes.
and I'll bring up the gluten free fad. And my partner is gluten intolerant, and so for there's a lot of people who realized, oh, this is why I have tummy issues because I'm celiac. So there are
Hmm.
some good things that came out of the whole gluten free fad, but it's just another low carb bullshit. Your brain needs carbs to function. That is the fuel for your brain. And if you want to be smart and if you want to be alert and still working here at 3 o'clock on a Friday when I would usually be done, you need to feed your body what it needs. And here I am. I had a banana and a handful of walnuts for breakfast, and I had a grilled cheese sandwich with real bread for lunch. And I am maintaining my weight loss, or I'm maintaining my weight. You can have these things. Just make sure they're all natural so your body knows how to process them. That's what
So,
it really comes down to.
Audrey, this is touching on something that's, I think, what I've been trying to drive to myself is it's not just the food you eat, it's the message you eat it with. You and I both grew up Italians,
Yes.
and there's the Italian grandmother who's 97 years old and drinking, smoking a cigarette with a glass of wine and having a little pasta, and she's 25,
Fine.
30 pounds overweight. It's the love that has to be it, because food is a message. And when you weaponize it and say, oh my God, I really want this burger, but if I eat it, I'm a piece of shit, you're killing the message. You're eating garbage. And it's the
Yep,
message that you tell yourself with the food. And I think that's what I love about what you're doing is you're creating ways for people to enjoy foods again, because it's not just complete absence of food. Yes, we do need to cut our calories, but you can eat healthy and enjoy it too.
absolutely. And I love, since we're Italian, there's a great quote by Sophia Loren, who I love so much. I named my daughter after her, where she says, I
Hmm.
would rather eat pasta than be a size zero. And
Yes.
can we name a more beautiful Italian woman as ever lived?
She's
No.
stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Stunning.
Yeah.
And she has I would assume, at least from this quote, has a healthy relationship with food. And, maybe as we get older, if we find that we have a hard time with carbs, maybe we don't eat carbs for dinner. If we start looking at food as if it's fuel, we should be eating the bulk of our calories and our carbs if we're trying to lose weight
Mhm.
earlier in the day, breakfast and lunch. And then
Yes.
maybe we have a lighter dinner, because it's like, I love to use the analogy of a car. Would you take your car on a road trip on empty and then once you get to your location, then fill it up? Because that's what we do to our bodies every single day when we don't eat breakfast, don't eat
Mhm.
lunch, and then have 1,500 calories through the drive through at dinner. It's
Right.
just, we need to start looking at food like this is fuel. We don't feel bad when we put fuel in our car unless the gas prices are really high, but that's a different kind of feeling bad. Why are calories a bad thing? Why is the word calorie just so negative? Because if you just kind of rethink that
Because
it
it's an
just
easy
means
control
fuel.
mechanism. The reality is, Audrey, it's an easy control mechanism. It's something that men can say, this is what you need in order to look what we will like.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
about the
simple
counting.
lever.
Yeah, it's the counting
Yeah,
again.
it's a
It's
simple
like
lever.
X equals Y, right? I've heard the thing that with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like you mentioned, you're supposed to eat breakfast like a king and lunch like a prince and dinner like a pauper. That's the term that I've heard.
I
Um,
love that. I've never
yeah,
heard that. I love that.
yeah. So again, because you're doing your activity, you're going to burn those bigger calories off, throughout the day. The calories. I mean, obviously, we were talking about calories. We have to. It's an
No, it's
actual
okay.
it's conversion
I
into
have the
heat
same
energy, right?
problem.
Yeah.
No, but if you remove it from the impetus of value, then you can
Yes.
have a conversation around it. To
Yeah.
say, okay,
Yes.
now let's talk about calories, because they're no longer my dignity is not dependent upon it. It's like,
Exactly.
will you like me? Am I enough? And then we can say, okay, what kind of calories? Because that was probably the most important thing that I ever learned is my calories do matter. I was consistently 25 to 30 pounds overweight. I always set a 250 mark, and then it was 255, and then it's like 257. It's like that. It just creeps up. And then I realized, holy shit, I am eating a full breakfast, an early lunch, a late big snack, and I was probably consuming 3,500 calories a day because I love steak, I love meats and I'm like, I love food, I do, and I'm
And
like,
you
okay,
can,
what if I cut back a little bit?
yeah.
Calories
Or
matter.
what if you don't have to cut back in portion size, but you just make them healthier?
You
So
divvy
what
it
if
up.
you cook your
Yes, you
steak
mix it up.
without a ton of olive oil? What if you have more vegetables instead of, or maybe what if you bake your fries or air fry your
Mhm.
fries instead of frying them? There are healthier ways to do it. And, in anyone
Okay.
going to my website is going to be like, oh my God, bitch, everything says low calorie. And that's
Right.
because that's what resonates with people. And I am part, I have a problem with the word calorie too. And I think it goes back to
Mhm.
like 0 calorie this and 0 calorie that. So
Right.
those are like what, free foods? They're not.
Right.
But you can create these foods, or you can eat these foods that are in a healthier, you can eat them healthier. So for instance, today I posted it on Facebook because a lot of people are, fasting for Lent in my
Oh, yeah.
group, and so I put out a shrimp fajitas. And the way I make fajitas is it's a whole hell of a lot of vegetables, like vegetables,
Hmm.
and some more vegetables,
Mhm.
and then definitely the protein, but the marinade or the olive oil is seriously cut back to just what you need, and then boosting the flavor with 0 calorie items. Jesus, I just said it. See, it's a problem even for me. But 0 calorie items like, garlic or herbs and spices.
Mhm.
But back to the fajitas, you guys had asked me, what are these foods that can naturally boost metabolism? And they're things that you find in your produce aisle. They are peppers are the best metabolism booster. Obviously, the spicier the better, but bell peppers are great for boosting metabolism.
You're also
Onions
great
boost
raw.
metabolism.
I didn't know
They're
that.
so good raw.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
so good raw.
Oh, I love pico
Yeah,
de gallo, right? And I use raw onions on the pozole, right? And it's a like a topper, right? It's perfect, or chili, whatever. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
That's why I like
So,
Mexican food. Mexican food can do a lot with flavor that's very
could eat
low
that every
calorie.
day.
It's
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you add in these metabolism boosting foods, you can have the foods that you want. You can have the meals that you want. You can have a blueberry cobbler because blueberries naturally boost metabolism. Let's just maybe cut out the bottom of it and just do a really yummy topping. Apples naturally boost metabolism. So instead of having a donut for dessert, and maybe having an apple for dessert sounds boring, but maybe you bake that apple and then it gets all caramelized and yummy and hot. There are ways that you can take these foods that naturally will increase your metabolism while turning off your hunger receptors and genuinely just filling you up. And I came out with I have 4 cookbooks. And when I was writing my second cookbook, Kate Hudson was reading Pretty Happy. It's right over here. I had to look at the name of it. And we both had the same publishing house. And my agent was like, do you know Kate Hudson? I'm like, hell no, I don't. Can you introduce me? But she's like, you guys are both saying the same thing. And it was interesting that she was writing a book about happiness and I was writing a book about weight loss. And we were saying the same thing. And here's what we were saying. When you eat food, how do you feel, not in that moment, not in the 10 minutes it takes you to eat it, an hour later or 2 hours
Mm.
later? Do you
Mhm.
feel lethargic? Do you have a headache? Do you feel just gross, like I'm
Food,
not proud of what I ate?
food baby,
Or
right?
do you,
Yeah.
a food baby? Yes, a Chipotle food baby, right?
Food baby. Is it?
You,
Wait, did you say food baby?
Food
I've never
baby,
heard
food
yeah,
that
it's
before.
baby.
something just sits
Okay,
in you and just like a gut, and you just feel it,
Yes.
and
I
you
know it
you are
well.
like you said lethargic, and you're like, oh,
Right.
why did I do that? Like a big
Yeah.
barbacoa.
Right, right. Or do you feel like you have more energy? You can get through your afternoon. You don't need that extra cup of coffee. How do you feel not in the moment that you're eating, which is important? Like, let's boost everything with flavor, let's make it delicious. But how do you feel an hour to 2 hours later? And if you can think about food that way,
Mhm.
it's the ultimate act of self-love and self-care. So
It is because
maybe,
it's important. I want to stop you there because that is super important for people to realize is you've got to have the right message about food. It's got to feed you. And I think crossing that bridge into, getting into the practical sides it does, there are ways, you just have to look for them, and you've done it. So part of
Thanks.
this is not just, is it probable or is it possible, but no, it can be flourishing. You enjoy the way you eat. Is that fair to say?
I probably, most people would think
And you
too
feel better
much.
doing it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I also splurge from time to time. Like you had mentioned free days. We had crumble cookie last night, girls' night, and before that, we hit In and Out for the first time here in Boise. We
Oh,
were so
I love
excited.
it. And thank you
But
for saying free days, not cheat
yeah,
days, because that's
no,
another
yeah,
thing we do to ourselves, right? I just call it a cheat
yep,
day because it's
Maybe
what we're used to,
gorge.
and it is not. It's a free day. That's right.
yeah.
Thank you for
It's you know,
correcting that.
I'm not gonna have that stuff every single day. I'm gonna have it on Thursday night. And with that said, because the lines have been 2 hours long and longer, we had dinner at 4 o'clock, my daughter and I. And I know that sounds crazy, but there was no line and it was great. And neither of us were hungry the rest of the night. And I kind of said, like, dude, instead of having your after school snack, why don't we have your after school snack later tonight if you still want it? And she didn't even want it.
Mm.
And I didn't feel gross. And, you know, another healthy thing was we walked around the mall afterwards, you know. So you can have these foods that you feel like you're not supposed to and just jump back right back on the bandwagon the next day. You know, I'm not waiting again until Monday. I have my banana and my nuts for breakfast.
Right.
So yeah,
It goes back to
I
what you
think,
said in the beginning, is you're going to fail. So
yes.
start with that, because it gives you a lot of permission to be a human being in the process. Like, people start out and go, it's the whole January 1st thing, and they do the diet change, and then Tuesday comes and they fall, like, fuck it. It's like,
Yeah. And
okay,
they give
well, you
up.
gotta give yourself those
Do you know what
those
percentage
days.
fail? Do you know what percentage fail?
It's
No,
like,
In the
tell me.
Psychology Today article, 89%. It's a 19, is that right? No, I'm sorry, 80, not 89, 79% fail. It's like a 19% success ratio
yeah,
with New Year's resolutions. It's because they're too dramatic, they're too
Yes.
over encompassing, and when you don't see the gains immediately that you want, you bail on it, right? And that's a terrible way of looking at things. Yeah, no matter
You
what it is, right?
Yeah, and I started a lose weight by eating podcast, and I'm starting another one next week because one is never enough
Love
for
it.
me. It goes back to all my eating. But I talked about setting realistic goals last week, and it kind of comes back the fact that you were talking about New Year's resolutions, because my analogy for this was, it was years ago, they were at Times Square and some woman was standing there and Anderson Cooper shoved a mic in her face and said, "What's your New Year's resolution?" And she said, "I'm going to do yoga every single day." And I was screaming at the screen, like, are you crazy? That's not reasonable. And when we have these huge goals, even if she's a yoga instructor, she's not going to be able to do that.
yeah,
And so I was talking about, set realistic goals. People say, I want to lose 5 pounds this week. No, your goal should be 1 pound this week. You can always beat your goals,
yeah.
but let's try
Yeah.
to meet them, because when we don't meet them, we fall off.
Why
And
do you
by the
think
way,
people? Why do you think people create bad goals?
I think, I
It's not their
almost wonder,
goal. It's not their goal.
no,
It's
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 other
it's it's some
people's goals
yes.
and they want to rush through it. And I get that. I want to rush through a lot of things too. But keep in mind that 1 pound a week weight loss is 52 pounds lost in a year, and 2 pounds, just do the math, is 104 pounds lost in a year. So smaller goals can always be beat, and they're more achievable, and you're so much more likely to stick to them. So instead of this woman saying, "I'm going to do yoga every single day," I love to tell people, instead of saying, "I'm going to work out 5 days this week," say, "I'm going to work out 3 hours this week." And then you can chunk it up into little pieces. And if you get to
Hmm.
Saturday and you realize, "I haven't worked out," you can go for a long bike ride. You can take a hike with the kids. You can walk the dog. You can make up that time. But when you say, "I'm going to do something every single day," it just leaves too much room for failure. And then naturally, for some reason, as humans, when we fail, we just want to give up. When
Mm.
failure, should be a learning opportunity, but
It
because people
always
have such an issue.
is. Yeah, it
Yeah,
always is. We just don't give ourselves permission to make it a learning opportunity.
yeah.
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 So yeah, it's just I'm
Did you
I'm
want to
very
pivot? Did you want to quit as you did that first year? You lost how much weight in how much time?
I
11
lost
months,
150
150
pounds
pounds in
in 11
11.
months. I know, it's crazy. I don't remember wanting to quit, but
But
I
that's
also
the thing. Did you
think
follow a simple progress? I know when like if you take yourself off sugar, you'll probably lose 10 pounds. Like that'll
yeah,
happen automatically because your body's not in a constant stress state. So sugar puts your body in stress. It
Right.
creates a constant dopamine hit. That's why it's not that it's bad for you. It's just it's not what your body needs all the time. And when you remove that, like at what point did you want to quit? And how did you stay on the path? And was it just a gradual or was it like all like this?
it was all like this. And
Mhm.
as I
So you
I can't
failed, but you did it.
keep going. So
Yeah.
I don't know if this is my idea or if I got it from someone else. So if I stole your idea, I'm please
No, totally.
message me. But I started doing an 8-week average.
Okay.
So instead of
Okay.
because for women just naturally and even after my hysterectomy, you will still have one bad week. Either that you don't lose weight or when you've, trimmed down as much as I have that you gain weight. It's just going to happen. And I've seen that with men as well. It's not quite as drastic, but we are going to have good weeks, we're going to have bad weeks. So instead of basing it all off of this week, this week, this week, this week. Write down everything for 8 weeks, add it all up, divide that by 8, and that is your 8-week average. And almost always, when I have coached people in weight loss and they wanted to quit, and I give them their 8-week average, they go, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" Because
Yeah.
I feel like
It
we're
tricks the
so
brain.
fixated.
Fear
It
too.
tricks the
It's like
brain is what
fearful,
it
like, oh
does. It's
gosh,
brilliant.
got to get on the scale on Monday, or like, and you're giving yourself the
Yeah.
freedom to actually make these. And what's also interesting is you'll notice it, right? If you've lost a few pounds, you'll feel it, right? There's either your pants or whatever feel a little bit better, or there's a definite feel. And so I love how what I'm hearing a lot of, Audrey, is you've done this a great ability to. It's like you're repurposing. So you're taking take this food and divvy it up in this way, and it's going to be delicious, and it's going to be high metabolic, and it's going to be there. I mean, just mix it up, and you do the same thing with this 8 weeks, and it's the idea of looking at things in a different perspective, and not putting these swim lanes in the way and in these limiters to expanding what you need to do. I love it.
Thanks. And for anyone who's just saying, I don't know what to do with these foods she's mentioning, every single week I put out, sorry, every single week I put out a free meal plan. It's completely free. If you go to loseweightbyeating.com, it's always on the front page and I never delete them. So say for instance, you look at this week's and you're like, no, I don't like that. You can just scroll down and find another one. They're always free. There's always links to all of the recipes. I I hate the weight loss industry. And I genuinely think weight loss shouldn't cost you anything. And so I can't change it, but I can give it away for free. So
So
anyone who wants to try it, go to loseweightbyeating.com and check it out. And even maybe listen. I hope you guys are okay with me plugging, but the Lose Weight by Eating podcast.
absolutely.
See, I thought I was going to be talking about my new podcast when we came on here, so I'd love to come back. But since we're talking about weight loss, check out the Lose Weight by Eating podcast because in it, I'm still trying to learn and I'm still trying to evolve. And what I'm trying to do is open up the conversation of you can take self love and self care and healthy eating and merge them together because if you're saying I love my body, it's so great. But are you really loving your body if you're always putting junk in it? The best way to love your body is to give your body what it needs. And,
Yeah.
this is coming from a woman who went to In and Out and Crumble Cookie last night. So,
Of
but there's balance in all of that.
course.
And with healthy eating, you'll naturally lose weight. And so I'm trying to find this balance and stumbling through it. And I've gotten a really great response from it. So I would love for people who are interested in hearing more on that to listen and to maybe even help me because I know I don't have all the answers. And it's a journey for me as well. So even after 14 years, after I've lost my weight and maintained it, I'm still struggling and trying to find the next step. And this time I have the platform where I can say, come along with me.
I
So
love it.
I would love for you guys to listen and give me your feedback. I even tell people on it, I welcome the hate mail, but I would really rather we just open up a conversation.
Amazing.
Audrey, I'm going to ask you to do something a little subversive, and you don't have to because I can always
Okay.
cut this out. But
Okay.
if you were to have the weight loss industry in front of you as an audience, what would you say to them?
I would tell them that they are abusers. They're abusing us. They're taking our money, telling us we're ugly, and they're abusing us. This is an abusive relationship. This is not okay. And if this was a relationship, like a we're dating relationship, we'd be out of it in a heartbeat. It's shitty. And I know there's going to be some people who say, well, you're part of it and you're part of the problem. And in the past, perhaps I have been part of the problem, and I am not perfect, but I am trying to find a way to call the bullshit. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that question again. And in a year and more therapy, I may have a more profound response, but that's
No,
what I've
Audrey,
got.
that is the whole point. Is we don't invite people here who have all the answers. We invite people
No.
here who are authentic about the journey that they're in. That's it. We don't expect perfect answers. We share wisdom, and I think you have a lot of wisdom, and that's
Thank you.
really what we want to
Yeah.
do here is help people, because what they will see is someone who did lose 150 pounds in a year. In other words, that's possible. Like I remember watching, there was a Netflix documentary about 15 years ago about juicing, where the guy lost
Yeah.
a ton of weight and he went across the United States. I kept fat, sick, and nearly dead, and it changed my life because all of a sudden I realized I can change my relationship with food. I don't have to be addicted to it. And that's partly what you're giving our audience is an awareness that you don't have to live addicted to food. There are ways out of that. So
There
thank you.
absolutely are.
Yeah.
Thank
My
So
you.
how do
my
I
yeah.
go
My
ahead?
question for the weekend is: what would you tell somebody who might be struggling right now or is going into the
Yeah.
weekend? What's one word of advice or one phrase you would tell them going into the weekend? Because it can be daunting sometimes, right? Going into the weekend with, social events and stuff like that. That you'd tell them that you'd be encouraging.
You're gonna screw up. It's what you do after.
Yeah.
That's it's just screwing up is part of the journey. It's what you do after.
Mhm.
Love it.
That's the best thing I've got for today.
Screwing up is part of the journey. It's what you do after. That's perfect. I will leave. So my final question for you is because I know Rich has been going practical, which is awesome. What is your favorite dish?
Oh God,
Like, what do you make for
that's
yourself for
so
your
hard.
birthday?
For my birthday, what would I
Yeah,
make?
because
See,
you
the
like
thing is,
food.
is
You're Italian. What do you
I
do?
love food. That's the problem. It's like I want it all. Um, wow. So it used to be
And it's got to
roasting a
be on
whole
your
chick.
website. What would you be?
Yeah.
What would you cook for yourself on your website?
Oh boy. Either fajitas,
Okay.
and I would allow myself as much cheese and guacamole as I wanted, or lasagna. I
Mm.
love lasagna, and I have a really healthy, amazing lasagna on the site that my
How do you make
full
lasagna?
Italian uncle loves. What's that?
Yeah, how do you make lasagna healthy?
You pack it with healthy vegetables.
Okay.
You still use I like to use Italian sausage. I use turkey Italian
Yes.
sausage, and I
Okay.
Yes.
use vegetables that kind of mimic meat, like mushrooms and zucchini, and I
Hmm.
add lots of onions in there. So I'm adding lots of flavor, but I like to lean on the flavor of sausage. And I know this is a horrible thing as an Italian woman to say, but I hate ricotta cheese. And I use mascarpone.
Oh
I
no,
Oh,
love
cool.
mascarpone all the
mascarpone.
Okay.
way. It's more expensive, but my God,
Yeah,
it's good.
yeah.
That's good
It's
stuff.
so good. But you
Love
can
it.
like mix it in with the filling, and it's just so fantastic. And I always make my own sauce. So making your own sauce really boosts the flavor. If you don't do that, you could absolutely like cook it down a little bit for an hour in a sauce pot with a little bit more garlic. Put some
Mhm.
onions in the pot, tiny little bit of olive oil, cook them down a little bit of garlic, just for as long as you can smell it. Then add in maybe a teaspoon or two of Italian seasoning. Again, just as soon as you can smell it, we're talking about a minute, and then add in the store-bought, ideally organic, because it won't have fillers or crap in it, sauce, and then just cook that down for 30 minutes to an hour, and that will be a really decent sauce. And then make that, or just make your own. My sauce is like 30 calories. It's amazing, and
Love it.
it's just a take on my grandmother's.
I'm getting very
my
hungry.
super.
Getting very
I'm
hungry right
sorry.
now.
No, it's
It's
good.
almost dinner time.
I'm gonna go
It's
join
almost
my
dinner
wife
time.
and my son over at this cool wood-fired pizza place we love, and gonna have some yummy beets and some olives too, and a glass of wine.
Nice, nice. And John, what are you eating tonight? Do you
I
know?
don't know. We haven't made any plans. We'll probably go down to the steakhouse or something, something
Gotcha.
close. So,
Gotcha.
Audrey, this has been fantastic. This has been an amazing show. I didn't expect it to go this way, and it did. This has been one of.
Special.
I appreciate your heart in fighting for yourself, because I think that's all I want for my daughters and daughters out there is the capacity to fight for yourself. And a weight is a big part of that journey. So thank you for being transparent. You really opened up. I really appreciate that, of giving us that gift for to really listen to what does it mean to step up and take the healing or the healthy journey that we all can take. And I can say personally, there's a lot of flavors out there that are very healthy. So there's a lot of room for improvement. It's mostly just getting off of processed foods, and
Yeah.
we're going to start that journey. So to all of our listeners, this has been another incredible episode. Have a great weekend. Please comment and review. Love your comments. We've been getting a lot lately. And if you have anybody that you'd like to recommend, please let us know. We're also on Instagram. You can follow us there. So much love, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Cheers.